guest today is, of course, he's a master of all trades. He's a podcaster, he's an author, he's a TEDx speaker, he's a consultant chef, and so much more. The list just keeps going on. But his main identity that even he likes to associate with is that of a foodie. Being a finalist in the fifth season of MasterChef, his passion for creating unique flavors and dishes is what has created his mark and his niche in the culinary world. Today, he rules the hearts of millions of us with his storytelling, his podcast, and the way he brings food to all of us through his content and also his innovative dishes. An author on the side, he also brings the essence of food on paper, and he keeps sharing his culinary adventures with us. So please join me in welcoming the one and only Chef Sadaf Hussain. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a long introduction. I'm for everybody else just listening to me or to both of us is just Sadaf. End of the story.
Okay, love it. Done. Thank you.
Yes.
So, Chef, I think I'd like to start with where it all began. Of course, all of us have our own journey with food, where sort of the spark came for you. So, what is one of your earliest memories in the kitchen, and what was one of those moments that sort of made you realize you wanted to be a chef?
Oh, I did actually a book as well, right? When my first illustrated book for kids, The Carrot Soup, in a way also explores the same journey. I don't know if I'll call myself that, oh, this was a time which made me believe that I want to be a chef. But yeah, that was a moment which made me believe that I want to be something in the food world. And that could mean a lot of things. And I have talked about this so many times. Somebody mentioned about Umi Abdullah. She is my favorite lady, one of the favorite ladies. So I remember as a kid, my mother wasn't well, and she asked me to cook food. This thing, right? I was barely able to sort of reach the slab of the kitchen. So I had to put like a stool and then got onto it. And I remember making snake gourd, tori ki sabzi, and roti. That was my first. However, so that was my first cook. However, my nanny has told me this, and my mother has told me this as well, which I vaguely remember, that usually kids don't go to school to study. Okay, I don't think anybody's first day of a school is like, oh, today we're going to. Nobody goes to school to study. Right? If any kid is saying, बचपन में मैं school जाता था पढ़ने के लिए, झूठ बोल रहा है. I didn't go to school to study. I went to school to eat food. No, so that doesn't mean कि मैं ऐसे midday meal नहीं खाया था. हमारे school में, my school was close to my house, like a 5 minutes walk, right? So I would, between 7, which was like 7 o'clock, I will go to school and come back by 9:30 or 10, which was like an LKG or upper KG class, right? Now that was an interesting thing because I will go to school, breakfast, that was at 6:30. Then I'll go to school. There'll be like an official school lunch for kids like us at 9, and then 10 I'll be back home, right? So, and then once you're home, then your mother will feed you again, and then at 12, then you will have a food time again, right? So from 6:30 or like within a span of 3 to 4 hours, I will eat like 4 times. So I think that in a way marked that I love food. And the other thing that I really wanted to be was to become the fattest kid on earth. And it's a legit thing, by the way, that I wanted to be the fattest kid. मोटा बच्चा बनना था मेरे को. Eventually I realized कि ऐसे मोटा बच्चा बनना कुछ अच्छी बात नहीं है. But yeah, I was really a fat kid because बच्चे थे शौक में कुछ भी बोल देते तो यही शौक था हमारा कि I want to be the fattest kid. I think that was cemented कि भाई खाने में ही कुछ करना है आपको.
That's so lovely, and the fact that it started in school and also at home, and then the fact that it's been a journey throughout your childhood, I think that's really beautiful. But you've taken that and sort of, as you've grown up and throughout your food career, one thing that, even I was sort of amazed with is how widely traveled you are. And food is undoubtedly one of India's biggest soft powers. It is one of our largest exports to the world, and sort of Indian cuisine itself is becoming such a phenomenon globally. So in all of your travels, what has your experience been in taking Indian food global? What has been sort of the process there for you?
I feel most of when you travel, I think everybody should travel. So that's number one. You should always travel, whenever time. And again, I'm not saying you have to travel outside. Within the country itself, within your own city, within your own state, we often don't even explore our own state,
True.
right? Whichever state you're from, let's say for example, you're from Madhya Pradesh, you're from Bihar, you're from Delhi, wherever you're from, हम usually ना उसी area में रुक जाते हैं. We don't go and explore, अच्छा, what else is there, right? Within an India, it's such a beautiful country that every kilometer you'll have a different kind of food, different kind of flavor altogether. And hence, I think travel from one city to another city, one place to another place, one district to another district, one country to another. So you will actually start appreciating people and their food both, right? So I mean, appreciate people, appreciate their food, and then just it's all love at the end of the day. When you travel outside, you also realize back in days, not much food, Indian food that you will get, right? Now there's, I think 2016 onward or 17 onward, there Indian food have really grown. And I have seen myself as well. I know many people who used to only have European food within India itself. Now suddenly there's maybe this all happened because a lot of Indian chefs were coming on TV. People like Vikas Khanna and Yudhar, all of them were promoting Indian food. So then all of us got into it. It's like, you know what? Let's try it out. तो अब उस तरीके से उन्होंने खाना बनाना शुरू कर दिया. So there are two things. Number one is sudden इज्जत खाने को मिली, हिंदुस्तानी खाने को. Here there was also time, at least in the 90s, this is what I read, and in my interaction with many of the chefs of that time, जो अक्सर हिंदुस्तानी खाने को, it should be Indian food, but the look and feel should be European, right? And there are so many Indian Michelin star chefs as well. They were initially making it look like European. Okay. Then comes a wave when the chefs realize that, you know what, let's make Indian food Indian, because in India, when you're serving European food, you're not making it Indian look, right? One of them could be, let's say, naan pizza. Naan pizza is the only one of the variations I could think of, which is a very desi version, right? But still, you're still making it look like a pizza. You're not making it look like a sabzi, tandoori, chawal, etc., right? You're not making it look like that. Or like, for example, sushi. You're still making a sushi. You're not serving people rice and machli alag se, right?
Correct.
So, but that was happening in European space or in space, right? But now, I think, kahin na kahin, is giving that izzat to Indian food itself and saying this is how Indian food look like. You beautify it, whatever is possible, but still remains Indian foods. The soul is initially Indian, and then putting themselves. पहले सिर्फ खाना बनता था, अब सिर्फ खाना नहीं, अब कहानियां बनाई जाती हैं. Now people go for storytelling, people go for experience. क्योंकि otherwise तो खाना घर पे ही मंगा लो ना, Zomato, Swiggy से घर पे मंगा लो. But I think now people are going for experiences. They don't go for food, only food.
I think that was so beautifully put towards the end. What you said, खाने के लिए नहीं कहानी के लिए जाते हैं, and I think that is a huge part of what you do. I was going to circle back to this towards the end a little bit, but I think I'll ask you now that you mentioned it. Storytelling is such a huge part of what you do in terms of the way you present your food. You make sure to bring the history of the dish, the history of the ingredients, the emotion that comes with that. Whether it's a religious sentiment, it's cultural sentiment, historic significance, whatever it is of the dish, you always make sure to bring it with the story. So why did you choose that storytelling path with your food? And sort of what is your research process? How do you bring up these food stories for everyone?
So I personally think that food, two things, world over, not just here, world over, people are passionate about. Actually, three things. The third one is what I see here. Food and politics. Everybody has an opinion, right? And third one is music. Everybody has a particular taste about these things. Everybody has a particular way of talking about it, consuming it, right?
Correct.
So, ab khana, for example, you're talking about big things, right? Let's say you are an engineer, right? And an engineer comes in the room and says, oh, this is how I built the ship, right? Full process बता रहा है कि मैंने ship ऐसा बनाया, ऐसा बनाया, ऐसा बनाया, ऐसा बनाया. But towards the end, he will talk about अच्छा वो ship जो है ना, कहीं तो जाके चेन्नई में रुका था या फिर केरला में ना, वो ship को यहाँ से रुका था, वहां जाके मैं उतरा, फिर मैंने ये prawn खाया, फिर मैंने वो खाया. Suddenly, the conversation will turn around. अच्छा, prawn के बारे में बताओ यार. And then they'll go, oh, I also like prawn. बताया मैंने prawn यहाँ खाया था, मैंने prawn पंजाब में खाया था, बड़ा तंदूरी स्टाइल में था. ओ मैंने तो prawn जो है एक बार गया था दार्जिलिंग, तो वहाँ prawn मोमो खाया था. इस तरीके से everybody has a story about food. For me, that's the beauty. I don't use food as a conversation ender. I feel खाना conversation starter होना चाहिए. कि आपने जब खाना शुरू किया, तो दुनिया जहान की भतेरी बातें करो, and talk about food, talk about culture, talk about the area, everything comes together when you are dining together, right? And that's why I think the benefit or the beauty of sharing meal and knowing the story. सेकंड इज, एंड दिस इज व्हाट आई पर्सनली थिंक, कि भाई हिंदुस्तानी जो है ना, दिस इज पर्टिकुलर हिंदुस्तानी जो है या फिर सब कॉन्टिनेंट वाले नॉस्टैल्जिया में जी रहे हैं, राइट? जो 90s में जो बड़े हुए हैं, जो 80s में बड़े हुए हैं, वो अभी भी नॉस्टैल्जिया चल रहा है कि यार वो जो जमाना था ना वो अलग ही था, हमारे बाप दादा अलग है। नाउ द मॉडर्न टाइम, जो जेन जीज एंड जेन अल्फा, वो अलग है, बिकॉज दे हैव नॉट सीन दैट
Correct.
वर्ल्ड, राइट? दे हैव ओनली हर्ड अबाउट इट. So the nostalgia, when people are serving that nostalgia of the story, Gen Z and Gen Alpha actually appreciate what was in the millennial or the boomer time,
Correct.
right? वो अभी appreciation value ज्यादा है. So उस तरीके से everybody is winning basically with the storytelling, with the narration. It's being much more appreciated. A classic example, just a small example, right? घर पे जब स्वेटर्स बनते हैं, जो स्वेटर जो बनाते हैं, अभी सर्दी हो रही है, सर्दी गई है, तो घर पे पहले नानी दादी स्वेटर बनाती थी, अम्मा भी स्वेटर बनाती थी, फिर धीरे धीरे वो हट गया, है ना? बट नाउ द जेन जीज एंड द जेन अल्फास रियली लाइक इट, दे वांट कि वो हैंडमेड कहीं से मिल जाए, राइट? एंड उसके लिए दिल पे एक्स्ट्रा, पहले नानी दादी अम्मा जो है ऐसी फ्री में बन रहा है घर पे कि अच्छा अब गर्मी आ गई है, सर्दी आ गई है, तो स्वेटर बना रहा है, बट उसके लिए पैसे थोड़ी मिल रहे हैं, बट अब जो है उसके पैसे दे रहे हैं जेन जी एंड अल्फा. आई थिंक दैट्स द ब्यूटी, कि दैट्स व्हाई आई थिंक स्टोरी टेलिंग हैज सच अ स्ट्रॉन्ग ब्यूटीफुल वे, राइट? एंड थर्ड, आई पर्सनली बिलीव ऑल ऑफ अस आर स्टोरीज. हम सब कहीं ना कहीं एक कहानी है, आज है कल खत्म हो जाएंगे, बट जो कहानियां हैं वो रहेंगी, वो चलती रहेंगी, वो कहीं ना कहीं से हम सबसे कनेक्टेड है. तो आई फील लाइक that's the power of story in people's life of eating. Food memory is the strongest memory.
I think I think everything you said, if I could just encapsulate that in a moment, I think it goes back to what you said initially, like, the food comes with its own story and sort of how you broke it down. I think as someone who is Gen Z, I can agree that, knowing the story behind something just makes us appreciate it more, to see where it's come from and where it's going.
Yeah.
But another thing you
True.
spoke about was sort of the hyper local cuisine that India has, which is very, very unique. When
Yeah.
we say Indian cuisine, all of us have like 4 or 5 dishes based on where we come from. Like as a South Indian cuisine is part of it. Then we have our normal naans and curries. But this hyper local cuisine that you spoke about, could you tell us a little bit more about that? Probably one story that sort of was a mover for you as well when it came to discovering these dishes.
Not discovering. I'll tell you, because I'm in Ranchi, and I'll tell you the story
Okay.
from here, right? Now, interesting thing, and I'm clubbing two stories together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this was because what you said about hyperlocal. I remember speaking with Chef Ranveer बहुत साल
Mm-hmm.
पहले, मतलब 2 एक साल पहले, बहुत 2 एक साल पहले. We were just talking in Bombay, and he mentioned कि किस तरीके से अब, for example, when you go to Lucknow, right? The first thing which will strike in your mind is
The charts.
what will you look for?
The charts, the food.
The chart. The chart and the galavati. So depending, if you're a vegetarian, then you'll think of chart. If you're the meat eater, then you will think of galavati, right? End of the story. If you go to Punjab, you're like, अच्छा छोले कुलचे खाएंगे, right? मतलब बिल्कुल ना, बट उसके बियॉन्ड भी खाना है ना, उसके बियॉन्ड जो अलग, ये तो फर्स्ट लेवल चला गया, और ये फर्स्ट लेवल सबको पता है. बट हाइपर लोकल तब आता है जब आप बिल्कुल भी जो घर का खाना है या फिर इसके बियॉन्ड क्या सर्व होता है, राइट? अब रांची में, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, रांची में 2 किस्म के खाने बनते हैं, पकते हैं. एक है ट्राइबल फूड, एक है शहरी फूड, राइट? अब शहरी फूड में लकीली अनलकीली जैसा ही बताया जाए, वो पिज्जा है, वो चाउमीन है, नूडल्स है, वो मोमो है, वो तंदूरी चिकन वगैरह है, राइट? बट व्हेन यू गो टू ट्राइबल फूड, इसमें आप फिर दुनिया जहान की चीजें आप देखते हो. अभी आई एक्चुअली हैड द, आई वुड से, प्रिविलेज टू गो टू अ प्लेस हु सर्व ट्राइबल फूड, एंड दे हैड रेड एंड चटनी, जो अभी उड़ीसा में रेड एंड चटनी को चीटी की चटनी इसको बोलते हैं, यहाँ धमता बोलते हैं उसको, जिसको उड़ीसा ने भी जीआई टैग मिला है इसको, ठीक है? पावर पैक विद प्रोटीन, उसकी चटनी आपको अवेलेबल होगी. देन देयर समथिंग कॉल्ड फुटका, व्हिच इज अ लोकल लिटिल टैंगी हर्ब, वो है. देन देयर इज मच डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ मशरूम इन झारखंड, देयर डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ साग लीव्स इन झारखंड, राइट? तो ये सब हाइपर लोकल है. फिर रागी, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, वी कुड नेवर थिंक ऑफ कि झारखंड इज नॉट नोन फॉर देयर रागी फॉर सम रीजन, but there's also ragi का इस्तेमाल, there are different kinds of alcohol, local alcohol, right? So all these are hyper local. Now वो तभी मालूम चलेगा जब आप एक लेयर के नीचे जाओगे, जब आप एक ही जगह पे जाके एक ही चीज ना खाओ. Or even, for example, there's a kind of kebab in Jharkhand, or there's a kind of tikya in Jharkhand, right? Tikya is the fried kebab, you can call it. वो यहाँ का यूनिक, that you will not find in Delhi. दिल्ली में आप बैठ के ना टाइप करो गूगल पे, देखो अच्छा 10 टाइप्स ऑफ झारखंड फूड, तो घूम फिर के वही लिट्टी चोखा आएगा. लिट्टी चोखा ठीक है, इज नॉट नेसेसरली झारखंड, इट्स आल्सो बिहार बाय द वे. तो and that goes back to what we talked about traveling, and hence people need to travel to find these things. इंटरनेट के बियॉन्ड बाहरी एक जो दुनिया है ना, जो एक्चुअली असल दुनिया है जहाँ पे खाना बेहतर तरीके का मिल रहा है, बेहतर मतलब जो इंटरनेट पे वो नहीं मिल
Correct.
रहा, बेटर नुआंस लोकल लोकल, और उसके बाद आप क्या करते हो कि उस लेंस को आप चेंज करते हो, एंड देन यू स्टार्ट अप्रिशिएटिंग द लोकल फूड कि अरे हर लोकल फूड का अलग ही फ्लेवर है ना कि
Correct.
ओ ये तो अलग है. maybe like for example there is a chop, the chop, mutton chop or chicken chop, which is different in Jharkhand, which is different in Bihar, which is different in Delhi, which is very different in Bombay and in Punjab, right? सबके नाम एक ही है, जिस तरीके से बन रहा है वो अलग अलग है, जो प्रोसेस है वो अलग अलग है. So I think that's the beauty of finding what is hyper local, because then you start appreciating कि शहर का अपना अलग फ्लेवर क्या है.
But thank you for sharing this. I think what you said, going beyond what we see on the internet and um, just finding out more by traveling. I think that is something that all of us can learn from. And as people in I.I.M.U.N,
Yeah.
all of us young people always get the opportunity to travel across when we go to conduct our conferences and events in about 220 cities. So I'm sure all of us will also take the lessons that you've shared in terms of trying local food. But in terms of going back to one thing you said about creating content and sort of going beyond the internet, content creation with food itself has become such a phenomenon now. And like, the fact that we're on Instagram talking about food as well. So how do you think social media and sort
Yeah.
of this whole digital revolution with food also has changed the culinary industry?
um फॉर द बेटर और वर्स्ट, ठीक है, दोनों ही हुआ है, एक तो बेटर भी है एक वर्स्ट भी है. वर्स्ट की बात नहीं करेंगे, बेटर की बात करेंगे.
ठीक है.
इससे ना जितने रेस्टोरेंट्स जो ऑलमोस्ट लाइक बंद होने के कगार पे थे, या फिर लाइक दो जगह बात करता हूँ, एक दिल्ली की बात करता हूँ, रांची की बात करता हूँ. अगेन रांची बिकॉज आई एम इन रांची. दिल्ली की बात करता हूँ बिकॉज आई लिव देयर. इंटरेस्टिंग, वहां पे एक ना पुरानी दिल्ली में एक दुकान हुई करती थी, बहुत पुरानी, वन ऑफ द ओल्डेस्ट शॉप्स कॉल्ड घंटे वाला. ओके, तो ये घंटे वाला ना मिठाई दुकान थी. एंड आई फील लाइक, एंड आई ऑलवेज से दिस कि अगर सोशल मीडिया जिस टाइम पे ये बंद हुई, ये दुकान बंद हुई रफली 2014-15 के आसपास, और उस टाइम पर इंस्टाग्राम आ रहा था धीरे धीरे.
Correct.
जिस तरीके से कंटेंट क्रिएशन शुरू हुआ 2016-17 के बाद ना, वो उस टाइम पे नहीं था. तो आई एम लाइक, अगर कुछ दिन और ये बच जाता, सस्टेन कर लेता, तो सोशल मीडिया इसको बचा लेती, राइट? देयर आर सो मेनी शॉप्स इन ओल्ड दिल्ली, पतली पतली सड़क, मतलब तंग गलियों में है, वहां पर आपको सोशल मीडिया अकाउंट के थ्रू आपको मालूम चल रहा है कि अरे यहाँ पर तो ये खाना है, यहाँ पर तो वो खाना है, जो अदरवाइज यू विल नॉट गेट, राइट? दूसरा वही हाइपर लोकल फूड के बारे में मालूम चलेगा. अभी फॉर एग्जाम्पल यहाँ रांची में ना, देयर इज वन लिट्टी शॉप, been here since like almost what 50-60
Oh,
years.
wow.
ठीक है, only like, and it's a small ठेला, वो 50-60 से वही लगा रहा है. बट उसके जब तक सोशल मीडिया नहीं था, that guy wasn't, I mean it was popular, लेकिन वो एक एरिया में 3-4 किलोमीटर में ही. बट नाउ बिकॉज सोशल मीडिया आ गया इधर भी, and this is talking about hyper local version or smaller city. So I'm saying small city हो चाहे बड़ा city हो, the moment all these content creators come and then they start recording, तो उसके बाद बहुत लोगों को मालूम चलता है, ओ अच्छा यहाँ ये खाना भी है, अच्छा यहाँ पे वो खाना भी है, राइट? सो आई थिंक दैट्स द ब्यूटी ऑफ all these content creators. I mean, not maybe all of them, but at least there are handful who are doing phenomenal job with food content creation. And I like to call them as documentation, because I am a in a way historian, right? So I like to collect all these historical references. मेरे लिए तो बड़े आसान हो गया काम. Then I'll go up and like, अच्छा कहाँ पे, मान लो दार्जिलिंग किसी कोने में क्या पक रहा है, I will just look it up on Instagram or YouTube. तो कुछ ना कुछ तो मालूम चल ही जाएगा कि अच्छा यहाँ पे ये है, वो है, फलाना ढिमकाना है, right? And then you can maybe contact the person and speak about it कि अच्छा थोड़ा और बताओ, tell me what else is there, how was the flavor, how was the real, I mean one is content creation के लिए अलग है, और एक होता है जो असल में बताओ कि अच्छा इसका फ्लेवर ऐसा था, तो आप वो भी कर सकते हो. तो मेरे लिए बता दीजिए कि आप डॉक्यूमेंट कर रहे हो, हम जैसे लोग जो हैं उस चीजों को निकाल के पढ़ ले रहे हैं या देख ले रहे हैं कि अच्छा ये ऐसा होता है.
Absolutely lovely. And I think what you said is true in terms of not just content, but also information sharing. And like you call it, it's sort of a
Yeah.
documentation process as well to create our digital archive in terms of food. Um,
Yeah.
I had a question for all of the culinary, on behalf of all of the culinary students that are here, and I'll add one of them in very soon. What has sort of been your leadership journey with in the kitchen, in the culinary industry, and what are some sort of leadership tips you would like to share for all aspiring chefs here?
आई थिंक एक तो काफी सारे लोग ना मेरे से ओल्डर जनरेशन के लोग बेसिकली विल से लीडर्स आर बोर्न नॉट मेड. आई थिंक बड़ा बकवास है ये. लीडर्स आर मेड नॉट बोर्न. लीडरशिप के पोजीशन पे आके ना आपके अंदर एक चीज होनी चाहिए जो बहुत जरूरी है. जब आप लीडर बन जाओगे ना तो बाय एंड लार्ज आपको पता होगा कि आई मीन अ लीडर ऑफ एनी प्लेस नॉट जस्ट इन फूड बट इन जनरल राइट. तो आप वहां तक आपने बहुत काम किया, बहुत मेहनत किया है, बहुत मशक्कत के बाद आप लीडर बने हो. सो यू हैव सीन इट. लेकिन एक जो चीज जो थोड़ी सी आ जाती है अक्सर कई लीडर्स में, वो है एक घमंड होना कि वो एक खुद के ऊपर क्या दिस इज व्हाट आई नो. एंड एक घमंड होता है कि आई नो अबाउट इट, तो वो अलग है. और एक होता है मतलब अपने काम पे गुरूर लेना, मतलब पैशन अबाउट योर वर्क राइट. और एक है एरोगेंस. ना आई फील लाइक कि काफी सारे लीडर्स को अपने अंदर एरोगेंस आ जाता है राइट. और फूड फर्टर्निटी में स्पेसिफिकली आई वुड लाइक टू बिलीव कि थोड़ा भी अगर कम ज्यादा हुआ एंड देन इफ समबडी एल्स कम्स एंड टेल्स यू कि अरे शेफ इसका ना थोड़ा सा मुझे लग रहा है ये, तो वो फिर जो सीनियर शेफ होते हैं बड़ा बुरा मान जाते हैं. कैसे कैसे बोल सकते हो तुम यार कि खराब है. नो आई फील लाइक all of us are humans, right? So, and this is not maybe just with the senior chef. This is maybe across because I've worked with multiple spaces as well. So I would like to believe that almost all the leaders have same thing कि तुम उनसे आर्ग्यू नहीं कर सकते, तुम उनको नहीं बोल सकते हो. So I would like to say जो new age leaders होने वाले हैं, जो हैं अभी भी जो बने हैं, is to keep that humbleness, right? Is to have that sense कि भाई हम ना थोड़ा इस तरीके से अगर कोई सजेशन दे रहा है तो let's keep growing, no? Growing मतलब human, as much as I am a mountain person, not a water person, but I think humans should be like water, always flowing, not like mountain. Mountain खड़ा रहता है, right?
Correct.
वो growth नहीं है उसके अंदर, मतलब सालों में एक बार growth आपको दिखेगा, है ना?
And now, before we just go to
Thank
our
you so much.
fun rapid fire segment, I have one last question for you. What have been
Yeah.
the ingredients in the recipe for your success?
Ingredients recipe. Recipe is just to understanding, being curious. I am actually a very curious person. Like for example, and I have no shame in just going and asking people. I have no shame in going and asking people saying, hey, listen, I don't know this. Could you please teach me? And that person could be anybody. वो air नहीं है खोपड़ी में. For example, if I the first time I made tandoori naan, right? Horrible. Right? As I asked chef, listen, teach me how to make it. Right? Way junior than me, way junior. But I like सिखा, मैं सीख लूंगा. सिखा दिया, मैं समझ गया कि ओके. एंड देन the next time I started making the naan. Right? So वो तो रेसिपी होनी चाहिए कि आप क्यूरियस रहें, आप हम्बल रहें. इंग्रेडिएंट पेशेंस. पेशेंस जो है बहुत बड़ा इंग्रेडिएंट काम आता है कुकिंग में स्पेसिफिकली. घर का खाना अलग होता है, रेस्टोरेंट का खाना अलग इसलिए होता है क्योंकि उसके ऊपर आपको ऑर्डर आ चुके हैं और आप एक ऑर्डर नहीं लगा रहे हो, आप बहुत सारे ऑर्डर एक साथ लगाने शुरू कर रहे हो. तो वो पेशेंस जरूरी है कि किस तरीके से आप जब खाना लगा रहे हो देन यू आर ए गोइंग टू सर्व द सेम फूड. बी इन द सेंस जब इतनी गर्मी हो रही है यू हैव टू सर्व फूड क्विकली. उसके बावजूद भी यू आर कीपिंग योर कूल, अपना दिमाग ठंडा करके और सर्विंग. आई थिंक पेशेंस इज द सीक्रेट इंग्रेडिएंट.
Lovely. So patience, hard work, humility, and just sticking to it and going forward and being curious is what I think you said as
Yeah.
and very important.
Being curious.
And so before we call it a day, and we do this fun thing towards the end, which is the rapid fire. So I'll just read out a few words and phrases,
Yep.
and you can tell us the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
So the first one is your favorite cuisine.
Indian.
Daily.
Indian all the way.
Okay. What comes to mind when I say Ranchi?
Love as in I
Okay.
grew up here.
And when I say Delhi?
Another love. It's a city I love to live in.
Okay. And I know you've spoken about this very recently, but what is your comfort food?
My comfort food. It's almost all the chefs have a similar kind of comfort food, which is dawal chal. But one of the comfort food that I have is chawal dal, of course, along with some bagan bhaja and aloo ka chokha
Lovely.
with some pickle or tomato chutney, whatever it is.
Sounds lip
That's the
smacking.
comfort food.
Now I think I'll take it to another level
Yeah.
with asking you what comes to mind when I say street food.
What street food I like, or what's the word I associate?
What street food you like?
I absolutely love pani puri. It's It's one of those. So pani puri, fuchka, gupchup, pani batashe, whatever you would like to call it. I just love it. Love it.
I think all of us can relate to that unequivocally. And the next word I will ask
Yeah.
you is youth, young people.
Energy.
Energy, lovely.
बिल्कुल ऐसे एनर्जी के थपेड़े मारते हैं ना, चमाट मारते हैं वो एनर्जी को. That's what we
And the
need.
next word is India,
With regards to food heaven.
heaven. And the last word I'll ask you is our organization, which is I.I.M.U.N. What comes to mind when I say that?
Education. Absolute fantastic education with those youth people.
Thank you. That's lovely. And we've learned so much from you this evening, from learning to be curious, to be patient and humble throughout your journey, to taking the effort to learn about food, to travel for food, and understand what hyperlocal cuisines are. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and share all of this knowledge with us. Uh, we will continue to relish food through your documentaries that you put out with the stories that come with them. So thank you so much for joining us, Chef. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I've lovely. I loved speaking with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
All
Thank you.
right. Thank you.